Senior observer Keck stood at the primary viewing port of Outpost Station Delta, her crystalline eyes fixed on the blue-green planet below. Earth, as its inhabitants called it, had been under her observation for the past 30 solar cycles. The Galactic Union's strict non-intervention protocols meant that humans remained blissfully unaware of their celestial watchers, their primitive detection systems unable to penetrate the station's quantum camouflage. Senior observer, we're detecting unusual readings from the Oort cloud sector, announced junior observer Mira, her voice carrying an edge of concern that made Kex's sensory filaments twitch. Kex glided across the observation deck, her levitation field humming softly as she approached the holographic display terminal. The readings were unlike anything she'd encountered in 3 centuries of deep space observation. A massive quantum anomaly was forming at the edge of the solar system, its energy signature growing exponentially. Run a full spectrum analysis, Kex ordered, though she already knew this was no sensor malfunction. The terminal projected a 3-dimensional model of the anomaly, its swirling purple-black mass expanding with each passing moment. The next 12 hours were a blur of activity as more observation posts across the system confirmed the readings. A quantum storm of unprecedented magnitude was approaching, its destructive potential beyond anything in the Union's historical records. In the station's central chamber, Kex faced the emergency gathering of observation team leaders. The room's crystal walls displayed real-time data streams from every post in the system, each telling the same story of impending catastrophe. The quantum storm will reach this solar system in approximately 8 months, announced Chief Scientist Vera, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing with distress. Our models indicate it will completely destroy everything in its path. We must inform the Union Council immediately, declared one of the team leaders, their atmospheric membrane rippling with agitation. And what about the humans? Kex asked, her gaze sweeping across the assembled observers. Don't they deserve a chance to survive? The chamber fell silent. Warning a pre-contact species about such a threat violated every protocol in the Union's guidance manual. Humans weren't deemed ready for the knowledge that alien life existed, let alone the complex physics of quantum storms. The protocols are absolute, Vera stated firmly. We observe only. Interference could cause panic, chaos. Their society lacks the stability to handle this level of information. Kex moved to the viewing port, watching the night side of Earth glitter with millions of lights. We've been making assumptions about them for too long, she said quietly. Yes, they wage wars. Yes, their technology is primitive compared to ours. But has anyone truly noticed how quickly they advance, how adaptable they are? She turned back to face her colleagues. In just the past century, they've progressed from basic atmospheric flight to landing on their moon. They've harnessed atomic energy, created a global information network, and begun to grasp quantum mechanics, all while we watched and labeled them primitive. That may be true, Vera conceded, but the protocols. A priority alert cut through their discussion. The station's AI announced, "Warning, quantum storm acceleration detected. New estimated arrival time, 4 months." The chamber erupted in concerned murmurs. 4 months instead of 8, barely enough time for the Union to evacuate their own vulnerable systems, let alone debate warning Earth. We must begin evacuation procedures for all observation posts, Vera declared. Most personnel will depart within the week. We'll maintain minimal crews for final observations. As the others filed out to begin preparations, Kex remained at the viewing port, watching Earth rotate slowly below. She felt her primary heart constrict at the thought of billions dying without ever knowing what hit them. I volunteer to remain with the minimal crew, she announced, making Vera pause at the chamber's threshold. Vera studied her for a long moment. Granted, but remember, observer Kex. No contact. We watch, we record, we leave. Those are the rules. Kex indicated understanding, but as Vera departed, she turned back to Earth with determination flowing through her neural pathways. Sometimes, she thought, Rules needed to be broken. She wouldn't abandon humanity without at least trying to help them survive. After all, she hadn't spent 30 cycles studying humans without learning something about hope. Dr. Chen looked at the display showing both the alien station and the quantum beings. "Well," she said with a smile, "it seems our quantum shield project just became a quantum bridge." In her station, Kex felt a deep satisfaction. She had broken every protocol in the book by remaining to watch over Earth, but in doing so, she had witnessed something extraordinary. Humanity's first steps into a much larger universe, taken not through war or conquest, but through innovation, unity, and the courage to reach out in understanding. The quantum beings began sharing their knowledge, the alien observers revealed their centuries of hidden history, and humanity stood ready to embrace its new place among the stars. They had faced extinction and emerged stronger, wiser, and more united than ever before. As the sun rose over Earth the next morning, it illuminated a changed world, a world that had not only survived its greatest crisis, but had transformed it into its greatest opportunity. Humanity had proven itself not just worthy of survival, but worthy of helping to guide the future of the galaxy itself. Admiral Elena Santos stood on the bridge of the U.S. Defender, watching as teams of engineers and scientists transformed the aircraft carrier into something entirely new. Where fighter jets once stood, quantum resonance arrays now gleamed under the Pacific sun. The ship's nuclear reactor had been modified to power experimental shield generators that would have seemed like science fiction just months ago. "Status report," she called into her comm unit. "Quantum array installation is at 80%, Admiral," came the response. "The Chinese and Russian vessels report similar progress. We'll be ready for the first synchronized test within 48 hours. From her cloaked observation post, Kex watched the unprecedented cooperation with growing fascination. The humans had taken their military vessels, tools of war, and transformed them into components of a planetary defense system. Her latest report to the remaining Union observers struggled to capture the magnitude of what she was witnessing. In the Central Research Facility beneath CERN, Dr. Chen worked alongside physicists from every major nation. The massive particle accelerator above had been repurposed, its incredible power now focused on understanding and replicating the quantum anomaly signature. "The breakthrough came when we stopped thinking about blocking the wave," Dr. Chen explained to the Global Defense Council, her hologram appearing in command centers worldwide. "We need to redirect it, like a river flowing around a stone." She pulled up a simulation showing Earth surrounded by a network of quantum resonance points. Each carrier group will generate a node in the quantum shield. When synchronized, they'll create a deflection field around the planet. But we need more power, more than all our reactors combined. "What if we didn't need reactors?" Dr. Petal from India interjected, his eyes bright with sudden inspiration. "Earth's core is a natural fusion reactor. If we could tap into that energy." Kex's sensory filaments trembled as she recorded this exchange. In all her centuries of observation, she had never seen a species make such radical scientific leaps in so short a time. Her own civilization had never considered using a planet's core as an energy source. The idea would have been dismissed as too dangerous, too unstable. But humans didn't just embrace dangerous ideas. They found ways to make them work. Within days, drilling operations began at strategic points around the globe. Teams of geologists and engineers worked around the clock, developing new methods to channel the Earth's natural energy into the quantum shield network. "They're not just adapting existing technology," Kex reported to her superiors. "They're creating entirely new fields of science. Concepts that took our civilization centuries to develop, they're mastering in weeks." At the bottom of the Mariana Trench, robotic vehicles guided by international teams installed the first deep Earth energy tap. Similar operations were underway in the Atlantic Ridge, the Siberian Plains, and other carefully chosen locations around the world. Admiral Santos received the update while overseeing the final modifications to her carrier group. "Deep Earth Tap Alpha is online," she announced to her crew. Power readings are beyond our initial estimates. We might actually pull this off." The remaining alien observers watched in stunned silence as humanity's defensive network took shape. Military vessels from former enemy nations now moved in perfect coordination, their quantum arrays pulsing with energy drawn from the planet's core. Satellites were repositioned to form a communications web that would coordinate the entire system. In her underground lab, Dr. Chen worked on the final calculations, her team running simulation after simulation. The holographic display showed the approaching quantum storm, now clearly visible to Earth's enhanced sensors. They had weeks, not months, before it would reach them. "There's something else in the data," she muttered, studying the storm's energy pattern. "It's not just destructive force. There's information in these quantum fluctuations." Kex felt her neural pathways freeze. The humans were starting to see patterns that even the Union's best scientists had missed. They weren't just building a shield. They were beginning to understand the fundamental nature of the quantum storm itself. As she prepared her next report, Kex realized she was documenting more than just humanity's fight for survival. She was witnessing the birth of a civilization that might soon surpass her own. The question was no longer whether humanity deserved to join the galactic community, but whether the galactic community was ready for humanity. In command centers around the world, final preparations were underway. The quantum shield network was nearly complete, its power drawn from the heart of the Earth itself. Humanity had united, innovated, and transformed their entire civilization in mere months. Now came the moment to test their creation and their survival. The Global Defense Command Center, carved deep beneath the Swiss Alps, hummed with nervous energy. Holographic displays showed the positions of every carrier group, every deep Earth tap, every satellite in the quantum shield network. Dr. Chen stood before the main tactical display, surrounded by military and scientific leaders from around the world. "The quantum storm has accelerated again," she announced, her voice steady despite the gravity of the news. "We have 10 days, not 3 weeks. We need to test the shield now." Admiral Santos' hologram nodded from her position in the Pacific. "All carrier groups report ready. Deep Earth power taps are operating at full capacity." From her observation post, Kex watched with a mixture of anxiety and anticipation. No species in Union records had ever attempted to defend against a quantum storm. The usual response was evacuation, acceptance of loss. But humans had chosen to fight. "Beginning power-up sequence," Dr. Chen announced. "Initiating quantum resonance in 3, 2, 1. Around the planet, carrier groups activated their arrays simultaneously. Energy from the Earth's core surged through the deep Earth taps, feeding into the network. The quantum resonance generators hummed to life, creating ripples in the fabric of space-time itself. In orbit, satellites recorded the effect. A shimmering, barely visible barrier beginning to form around the Earth, like a soap bubble made of pure energy. "Power levels holding steady," reported the engineering team. "Quantum field integrity at 60%, 70, 80. Kex's sensory filaments detected something extraordinary. The humans weren't just creating a shield, they were weaving something far more complex. The quantum field they generated didn't simply block energy. It redirected it, transformed it. "We're detecting anomalies in the shield pattern," one of the scientists announced, concern edging into his voice. "Those aren't anomalies," Dr. Chen replied, her eyes widening as she studied the data. "The shield is learning. It's adapting to quantum fluctuations automatically. The AI we integrated into the system, it's evolving the shield structure in real time." Kex immediately began recording everything. This was beyond anything the Union had ever conceived. The humans had combined quantum physics with artificial intelligence, creating a defensive system that could think and adapt. "Shield integrity at 95%, came the report, beginning final phase of power integration. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the command center. The tactical display flashed red, showing a massive power surge in the Asian sector. Deep Earth tap in the Himalayas is overloading, someone shouted. Energy levels are critical. Admiral Santos's voice cut through the chaos. If that tap blows, it'll create a cascade failure through the entire network. We'll lose everything. We can't shut it down, the engineering team reported. The power flow is self-sustaining. Dr. Chen moved quickly to the main control interface. We're not shutting it down, she declared. We're going to use it. Her fingers flew across the holographic controls. The shield doesn't just have to defend. It can absorb energy, redirect it, if we reconfigure the quantum resonance pattern. Kex watched in amazement as the humans turned what should have been a catastrophic failure into an advantage. The excess energy from the overloading tap was channeled through the shield network, strengthening it beyond its original specifications. Shield integrity at 120%, came the astonished report. The network is stable. The AI is successfully managing the increased power flow. In command centers around the world, cheers erupted. They had done it. The quantum shield was operational, and it was more powerful than anyone had dared hope. But their celebration was short-lived. A new alert sounded, and the tactical display shifted to show the approaching quantum storm. It had accelerated again. New arrival estimate. 36 hours, Dr. Chen announced, her voice cutting through the sudden silence. The storm, it's reacting to our shield, almost as if it's alive. Admiral Santos finished. Kex felt her neural pathways pulse with shock. The humans had seen it, something the Union had missed in all its centuries of study. The quantum storms weren't just natural phenomena. They were something more. As she prepared what might be her final report to the Union, Kex realized she was about to witness either humanity's finest hour or its last stand. Either way, they had already achieved something remarkable. They had seen what an ancient spacefaring civilization had missed, and they had chosen to face it head-on. In the command center, Dr. Chen studied the approaching storm with determined eyes. "We've got 36 hours to understand what this thing really is," she declared. "And then we're going to do more than just survive it. We're going to communicate with it." The quantum storm filled Earth's sky with shimmering waves of purple-black energy, visible even to the naked eye. In the Global Defense Command Center, Dr. Chen and her team worked frantically to decode the patterns they'd discovered within the storm's quantum fluctuations. "It's a language," she announced, her voice filled with wonder. "Not words or symbols, but pure quantum information. The storm isn't just a natural phenomenon. It's a form of life, trying to communicate." From her observation post, Kex watched in stunned silence. In all the Union's history, no one had ever considered that quantum storms might be sentient. The humans had discovered in days what her civilization had missed for millennia. Admiral Santos' hologram appeared in the command center. "The shield is holding, but the storm's power is increasing. If it's trying to communicate, we need to answer now." Dr. Chen nodded, her fingers dancing across the quantum interface. "We can use the shield network itself as a transmitter. The AI has already adapted to the storm's quantum patterns. We just need to modify those patterns to send a response." Around the world, the carrier group's quantum arrays hummed with new energy as they began transmitting humanity's first message to the storm entity. The shield's shimmer changed, rippling with complex patterns of energy. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the storm's advance slowed, its swirling masses of energy shifting in new patterns. "It's responding," Dr. Chen breathed, watching the data stream across her screens. "The patterns. It's curious about us, about how we created the shield." Kex could hardly believe what she was witnessing. Her own people had spent generations running from these storms, never once thinking to try understanding them. But humans, in their desperate fight for survival, had done the impossible. They'd made first contact with an entirely new form of life. The storm's energy patterns grew more complex, and Dr. Chen's eyes widened as she interpreted the data. "It's not just one entity," she revealed. "The storm is a collective consciousness. exploring our galaxy. They never meant to harm us. They didn't even know we were here until we created the shield. In orbit, satellites recorded an extraordinary sight. The quantum storm was transforming, its destructive energy resolving into distinct patterns, like a vast purple aurora dancing around the Earth. "They're offering to teach us," Dr. Chen announced, her voice filled with excitement. "Their understanding of quantum physics, of space-time itself. It's beyond anything we've imagined." Kex could remain silent no longer. With a decision that would change everything, she deactivated her station's cloaking field. The human sensors immediately detected the alien presence in orbit. In the command center, new alarms sounded. "Unknown structure detected in orbit," came the report. It's been there all along." Kex opened a communication channel to Earth for the first time in 30 cycles of observation. "People of Earth," she transmitted, her words automatically translated into every human language. "I am Senior Observer Kex of the Galactic Union. We have been watching you, studying you. Today, you have proven yourselves to be far more than we ever imagined." The command center erupted in shocked murmurs, but Dr. Chen stepped forward, her face showing more curiosity than fear. "You've been observing us. For how long?" "Long enough to know we were wrong about you," Kex replied. "We thought you were primitive, not ready for contact. But you've achieved something none of our member species ever has. You've made contact with the quantum beings, turned a threat into an opportunity for understanding." Admiral Santos joined the conversation, her hologram standing tall. "And now, what happens to Earth?" "Now," Kex answered, "I formally invite humanity to join the Galactic Union, not as a protected species, but as equals. Your ability to innovate, to unite in crisis, to see solutions where we saw only problems. These are qualities our galaxy desperately needs." The quantum beings swirled around Earth in a dance of purple light, their patterns showing approval of this exchange. They too had discovered something unexpected. A young species willing to reach out in understanding rather than react in fear. Dr. Sarah Chen sat bolt upright in her chair at the Mauna Kea Observatory, her eyes fixed on the data streaming across her monitor. For the third night in a row, the quantum sensors were detecting something extraordinary at the edge of the solar system. The readings defied everything she understood about space-time mechanics. "James, are you seeing this?" She called to her research partner, who was already hurrying over with his own tablet displaying similar readings. "Yeah. And it's not just us. I'm getting messages from observatories in Chile and South Africa. They're picking up the same anomaly." From her hidden observation post, Kex watched the humans' discovery unfold with growing interest. She had spent weeks carefully calibrating the station's quantum shielding to allow tiny glimpses of the approaching storm to leak through, just enough for Earth's most sensitive instruments to detect. Within hours, Dr. Chen's findings reached the International Astronomical Union. Instead of dismissal or skepticism, the scientific community responded with unprecedented urgency. Virtual conferences were hastily organized as researchers from every major observatory shared their data. "The quantum fluctuations are increasing exponentially," reported Dr. Yuki Tanaka from Japan's Subaru telescope. "Whatever this phenomenon is, it's massive, and it's heading directly toward our solar system." Kex monitored their communications with growing admiration. The humans weren't just seeing the threat. They were understanding it far better than she had anticipated. Her own people had taken decades to develop theories about quantum storms. These humans were forming accurate hypotheses within days. In Washington, D.C., the president sat in the Situation Room, surrounded by advisors and linked via secure video to other world leaders. Similar scenes played out in capitals around the globe, but instead of descending into panic or pointing fingers, humanity did something remarkable. "Every nation needs to share everything they know," the Chinese president declared during an emergency UN session. "This isn't about politics or power. This is about survival." Kex recorded everything, sending carefully encrypted updates to the handful of remaining alien observers. They're coordinating globally, she reported. Military powers are sharing classified research. Space agencies are pooling their resources. They're moving faster than anyone could have predicted. In orbit, satellites were quickly reprogrammed to gather more data. Space telescopes turned their gaze toward the approaching storm. On the ground, particle accelerators switched to studying quantum mechanics full-time. Dr. Chen hadn't left the observatory in days. She and scientists from 30 countries worked around the clock, sharing ideas through virtual conferences. Their determination was infectious. "Look at these patterns," she said, pointing to her screen during one meeting. "The quantum disturbance isn't random. It's like a massive wave of reality-warping energy. If we can understand its frequency," added Dr. Tanaka, "we might be able to develop some kind of countermeasure." In her observation post, Kex watched in astonishment as human scientists began developing theories that her own civilization had never considered. They thought differently, made unexpected connections, refused to accept limitations. "They're actually doing it," she whispered to herself. "They're finding answers we never even looked for." The Galactic Union's evacuation continued. Most observation posts were already empty, but the humans didn't know about evacuation. They were focused entirely on understanding and fighting back. World leaders announced the threat to the public. Kex and the remaining observers waited nervously for panic. Instead, they saw unity. People gathered in cities across the globe, not in fear, but in purpose. Universities opened their labs and supercomputers for research. Private companies redirected their resources to support the scientific effort. Update from Earth, Kex reported to her superiors. They've begun developing what they call the Quantum Shield Initiative. Their understanding of the situation is remarkable. In the Mauna Kea Observatory, Dr. Chen finally allowed herself a small smile as she reviewed the latest theoretical models. Humanity's response to the threat was taking shape, and it wasn't what anyone, human or alien, had expected. "We're not running," she told her international team. "This is our home, and we're going to find a way to protect it." From her hidden station, Kex felt something she hadn't experienced in centuries: hope, mixed with a growing certainty that her species had severely underestimated these remarkable beings called humans.